Hey everybody, I'm Ellie Mae, joined with Shannon today. 3, 2, 1, here she is. Yay.
Yeah.
Um, and tomorrow is 4th of July. Shannon, do you have plans?
Yeah, I might go see some fireworks, and I think there's the San Francisco Symphony is playing at this place near my house. So yeah,
Ooh,
they're playing American music, the symphony.
I
So
love that.
what about you?
Well, we are going to be blowing up some fireworks in the
Mm.
neighborhood. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We got some really, really big, scary ones. So
Ooh.
yeah, we're excited. Um, and other than that, I mean, I might go see a parade or something and, just do the little celebrating our Independence Day. So I just love it's like one of my favorite holidays. It's so fun. Not just because I'm like super American, whatever, but I just love the fireworks and being in the summer and watermelon and all the picnics and lake life and all of that. But anyway,
Yes, watermelon fireworks. California has pretty stringent restrictions on what fireworks you can set off, but
yeah, we have an allowance basically on 4th of July. I mean, we might have some that are bigger than allowed,
yeah.
but there still is pretty lenient rules on 4th of July here. But other than that, you can't really do it. But yeah, 4th of July is when it's sort of allowed, which is fun. But anyway, our question today is, should Trump wait until the midterms to appoint a Supreme Court justice? I've heard a lot of Democrat lawmakers saying he should because people want sort of the input of the people to kind of affect this decision by, maybe electing more Democrats, and that will change the decision or who will get put through. And then others are saying, no, he's going to do it now. I just read on the New York Times he's going to try to make the announcement by July 9th, which is quite soon. So, yeah, I mean, do you think he should wait? Or not even should he wait? Because I don't know if that's even a fair question, but do you want him to wait?
I Here's the thing. I kind of well, okay, look, I am a liberal. I would not like to see an arch conservative. I don't want to see another Alito elected to the Supreme Court to take Justice Kennedy's seat. That would completely throw off the balance. I think that would be unfair. I think that would be a Supreme Court that has a political ideology that is not in keeping with the majority ideology of the United States. So yes, I do not want to see another super conservative Supreme Court justice replace Kennedy. That being said, I like fundamentally this whole problem is like it's just I feel like it's fundamentally unfair that the randomness of which president gets to elect a Supreme Court justice, or I know Congress elects them, but which president nominates them. I think it should be something that is either a bipartisan, like judicial party, or it should be, I feel like it should try to be separated as much as possible from oh, this person happens to be president. Like the fact that depending on who won the presidential election, Hillary or President Trump,
Yeah.
the defining thing between having a super liberal or a super conservative justice, I think that's BS. What I would like to see is a moderate jurist elected to the Supreme Court. So I think Kennedy was a great example of someone who truly, I mean, he was actually conservative leaning. If you look at his voting record, he was a conservative justice. But he was someone who voted according to what he felt like the law dictated, what he felt like the Constitution dictated. And that often sometimes took him at odds, most notably, I think, in legalizing gay marriage with the conservative majority. So to me, what I think is most interesting on the Supreme Court is actually people like Roberts and Kennedy who vote who aren't just hewing to party lines when they vote. And I think that's who Trump should elect. And I'm really disappointed to see that the list that he's drawn up is people who are just dyed in the wool conservatives who, exactly, like I think Alito is a great example of this. Like Bush elected him to replace Sandra Day O'Connor. Sandra Day O'Connor was a conservative who often, voted or she often fell on the side of liberals or moderates, or she was someone who you feel like truly was looking at the law, not just like voting along party lines. And she's been replaced by someone, Alito, who just never steps one toe out of his party line, And I think that's terrible. I don't think that's what the Supreme Court is about. I think it's about people who are interesting legal minds who are actually judging each law based on its merits, Yeah, anyway, I'm going off on a total rant.
No, yeah.
I
I
feel like,
think some people might say the same about Ginsburg, but not sort of leaving that party. But there is sort of a balance with maybe people on those far ends, and maybe you disagree with that. But I think what I think is so cool about how our country is set up, the way it's intended, while it's obviously imperfect, especially like you were saying, it depends on which president that can determine a Supreme Court justice for decades. But I think it's cool that the founders sort of made it a protected thing. The Supreme Court decision and who is going to be appointed, that's sort of a protected thing that is away from elections and away from, pandering to people. And, it allows more of an objective opportunity, while it is turned into something that isn't that way. At least that was the original intention, which I think is just so cool. And, we've become a two-party country, but that I don't think was intended either. So I just think it's fascinating, all of these things that were set up to sort of protect us, and from an overreaching government or from a manipulating government, even though we've kind of fallen so far from that. But yeah, that's kind of my Independence Day mind going right now, like back to 1776.
I think the intent was like, it is a separate branch, right? There's a reason to have separate but equal branches of government. So to me, there is something wrong with the Supreme Court, which is supposed to be this separate branch, which is about upholding the law of the land, interpreting the Constitution for modern day society, is so contingent on who is president, and that just feels wrong to me. And you're totally right about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and I think Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan. I mean, and Breyer, like there are the liberal justices who vote, firmly on the liberal side, and then the conservatives. I mean, Clarence Thomas obviously like never stepped a toe out of his,
Yeah.
So to me, and I do think that is harmful. To me, the most interesting justices are people like Roberts and Kennedy, who are willing to. You just get the sense that they actually sort of, I don't know, like
they're trying to look at things bigger than just party lines, or they're not so.
And maybe it's about having moderates. Like, I agree with you. Like, it could be okay to have some dyed in the wool liberals who only vote liberal, some dyed in the wool conservatives who only vote conservative. I guess so. Maybe I think less that everyone should be a moderate on the Supreme Court. It's more that we need to have a balance that includes moderate candidates, independent candidates in the middle. And I think that's what makes me so apprehensive about Kennedy, because he was a candidate who was in the middle. He was a swing vote because of that on a lot of big cases. And I would be very reluctant to see that replaced by someone who is dyed in the wool conservative, just as I think I should equally, to avoid hypocrisy, be not want to see that replaced by someone who's a dyed in the wool liberal, which I kind of do. I feel like someone in the middle is who we need. Like, if Roberts and Kennedy were replaced by people who were dogmatic on either side, that would be really concerning. I think a Supreme Court that has a mix of, people who are in the middle, people who are conservative, people who are liberal, that is correct. Like, that is what we need, because they bring different viewpoints and they bring different perspectives, which we've talked about. I mean, one of the questions that we had been talking about earlier was, should Trump elect a woman to the Supreme Court? And I think that's an interesting question about diversity, which obviously I think on the liberal side, there's always this drumbeat of, we need more people of color, we need more women on the Supreme Court. It used to be all just white men, and we have seen some change to that effect. And I really support that. Like, obviously, I support diversity. Actually, Justice Scalia also pounded the drum for diversity, but his point was he would like to see people who were not just from very liberal, sort of ivory tower elite institutions, like everyone went to Yale, everyone went to Harvard.
Yeah.
We need people who came up from, the Midwest, who went to a school in the South, and, who maybe aren't part of those sort of elite ivory tower legal circles, which I think is, I guess to me, probably the most important diversity, though, is diversity of opinion, which is instead of being like, we need to stack the court with liberals, we need to stack the court with conservatives, which is what both sides seem to be arguing for their respective side. We should be stacking the court with a variety of perspectives. Like, you want people who are independent, you want people who are moderate, you want people who are like constructionist conservatives, you want people who are super liberal. Like, you need a diversity of opinion, because that is what America is this diversity of opinion. That's how you arrive at consensus. And so I really so strongly am against the idea of stacking liberals or stacking conservatives. And I will even admit that I think some apprehension about if Hillary had won and she had replaced Scalia, who was firmly a conservative justice, with a super liberal justice. I think that would have been, that might have been, I mean, I hesitate to say equally as bad because I'm a liberal, so I have to like hew to the party line, but I think that would have been damaging as well. I think the goal is to have a Supreme Court that has this diversity of political opinion and interpretation of the Constitution.
Yeah, so I just had this woman, Amy Barrett, I don't know. But so Trump has interviewed 4 people so far. He refused to say their names, but a source told the New York Times that she was one of them. And she previously clerked for the late Supreme Court Justice Scalia. She was appointed by Trump and confirmed to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals in October 2017. She graduated from Notre Dame Law School, and she would be the 5th woman to serve on the Supreme Court. So that's one person he interviewed. And then there are 3 others. One that I found interesting. Wait, let me see if I get the picture. Yeah. I cannot pronounce his last name. Kavanaugh, maybe just Kavanaugh, an appointee of George W. Bush, also worked on Mr. Bush's White House, clerked at the Supreme Court for Justice Kennedy. He was also a prosecutor under the independent counsel, Kenneth W. Starr, who investigated President Bill Clinton. So that's a little interesting. And then Judge Thapar, the son of Indian American immigrants, was Mr. Trump's first nominee to an appeals court in 2017, a former district court judge from Kentucky with a conservative track record. Judge Thapar was among those the president considered as a replacement for Scalia, who died in 2016. So he's keeping his same list. And then the other one he talked to is Raymond Kethledge, and he I don't know. He went to University of Michigan Law School and worked for Kennedy or something. I don't know. But yeah, so those are the 4 he's interviewed, and he talked to them for 45 minutes each, and he has a list of 25. There are a bunch of other kind of interesting people on that list. One includes Mike Lee, who is a big conservative, but he's a senator. So I think he's the only senator on the list. The rest are judges. And so that's kind of interesting, and I doubt that will happen. But
it's only in sort of modern Supreme Court history that you have had to be a lawyer and a judge to be elected to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Earlier American history, they elected a wider variety.
Yeah, and that's cool. They should definitely consider more. I think it's important to have a law background, obviously, when you're interpreting the law. But it's to branch out a little bit. I'm sure Mike Lee has a law degree. I don't know, but I'm sure he does. But anyway, continue. Sorry.
I'm noticing some comments that brought up, I think, to circle back to our conversation about, who gets to appoint Supreme Court justices, is it fair with the election? I think one of the things that is particularly sticking for Democrats, but I think also just anyone would acknowledge, like when Scalia died, Obama was president, and so he would have gotten to elect or to nominate, and then the Congress would have voted to elect the next Supreme Court justice. So he nominated Merrick Garland, who was like a relatively moderate, but like definitely liberal, moderate justice. And so to replace Scalia with like a liberal leaning justice would have been a huge upset. And so under Mitch McConnell, the Senate basically blocked any consideration of the nomination for over a year until the election. So I think there is something fundamentally wrong with the process when we are at the whim of Mitch McConnell on when things are, when a Supreme Court justice the vote is for his nomination. Like that is not what the founders of America, wanted. They were not like, whoever happens to be the majority of the Senate gets to decide whether or not this president, there's something fundamentally unfair about that. I understand why Republicans wanted to block Obama's nomination. And in the same place, I think Democrats equally now want to block Trump's nomination for exactly the same reason. But on either side, I just don't think that's fair. And there's something wrong about that to me that needs to be fixed. Yeah.
It's just like, even down to it further, it's this 2-party system that has just corrupted so much. And, I think how both sides have just clung to everything, on party lines so hard. It's just frustrating. And, there's no tolerance for a middle ground. There's no tolerance for an independent. You see independents run for president. They have absolutely no chance of winning. And I think that is even worse, but that's our own doing. And it's like, well, partially our own doing, but we should really, just make it more okay to have middle ground people, moderates and independents, because it's not okay right now. It's not tolerated by either side. And that's hurting us, because then we run into situations like this, and it's just so stupid. I was trying to get to more comments, but I can't read them fast enough because there's so many of them.
Right. Okay, here's a comment from Dan. Ellie, stop thinking about firing off motors.
What?
I don't know. Spell P-A-R.
I think that joke went over my head. Sorry, I'm blonde right now.
I don't understand what that means.
I don't get it.
Please explain what you're talking about. The other thing to build on, I just saw that comment. I was like, what is that about? The other thing to build on that is, I think, obviously there are a couple very headlining issues. So Roe v. Wade and I can't remember the name of the actual case, but legalizing gay marriage, that are still contentious for a lot of Americans. And so there is definitely some movement. I know I've certainly read things that say a lot of Christian conservatives who might have been against Trump for other reasons, like for other moral reasons, knew that he would put in a pro-life Supreme Court justice. And so that was like why they voted for Trump. Mm-hmm. And same on the Democratic side, like now it's like we need someone, like we can't have like a pro-life justice in the Supreme Court. It also makes me nervous to think about that being the sole filter for who is getting elected. Yeah. The idea that you would be vetting someone, either that Trump is vetting someone or the liberals would vet someone or be against someone, just like that's the one issue.
Single issue, yeah.
Right. It's like we're only electing a Supreme Court justice because of how they're going to vote on a potential repeal of Roe v. Wade. Just like that is totally corrupting what the Supreme Court is about. And that's not, what it's supposed to be about. That being said, I obviously understand people who are extremely passionate about, like, one of my best friends is like literally texting me and he was like, well, I guess I need to get married like now, because as soon as Kennedy is out, like they're going to repeal that.
No way. There's no way these things are going to be overturned. I was talking to Minnie about it too. And there's just, I think there's literally no way. I know there's fear, and that's valid because politics are scary and you really don't ever know. Look at Trump. He got elected and no one thought he would. So yeah, I get it, but there's just no way. Like, I can't see that happening. No way.
I kind of agree. I do feel like there could be chipping away, like as we've seen with some other like campaign finance and affirmative action and some civil rights laws. You could definitely see some like curtailing of the. But yeah, I agree with you. But I think fundamentally, if you're looking only through the lens of like, is this person pro or against Roe v. Wade? Like that is such a perversion of what this is about, what the Supreme Court is about. You know what I mean? It's not about having a social agenda and being a single issue jurist. Like that just is no, like I don't, I just am really against having that be the filter through which we're looking at these justices.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, I agree with that because there's so much more. There's so much more. And yeah, like totally agree. Dorothy said, judges are not about politics. They judge.
That exact comment when you said that.
Oh, I was like, judges are not about politics. They judge the existing law. Yeah, but like they are sort of about politics, which kind of sucks because the law has to do with politics. So, but yeah, I agree, Dorothy. Though I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's why it's important to have a variety of people on the Supreme Court. Like, if you had a Supreme Court that was like. I feel like what we have now is like we basically have like half the Supreme Court is super liberal, half is super conservative, and there's like one person in the middle who like will occasionally vote one way or the other, and it like flip-flops. And that just feels like very unsatisfactory and like you were saying, against what sort of the point of the Supreme Court was in terms of the Constitution. It's supposed to be about interpreting the law, having interesting legal discussions, picking out, how do you apply the Constitution to a very different society than when it was written. And it feels like there's just a lot of room for more discussion and sort of dissent, I guess, and differences of opinion than we usually have.
Danny says, I think I love both of you. Well, we love you too, Danny. The most bipartisan comment on here.
No, yes.
But I think that's it from me. Do you have any other final thoughts? I'm excited to see what happens. I was saying yesterday on the show, things are so crazy. I can't imagine them getting any crazier. Politics have just been so wild this year, actually for the past few years. And so I'm just excited to see what happens. And especially because, again, he is going to try to announce someone July 9th. So that's quite soon.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I feel like if he, Kennedy was a conservative. He just was more of a moderate conservative. And so in my mind, I feel like replacing him with a moderate makes sense. And I think that's the route Trump should go. I don't think we need to necessarily push it until the midterms so that Congress can stall for 3 years.
Yeah.
And try to get a liberal in. I mean, that is terrible to me. But I think Trump should nominate a not moderate conservative. That's what Kennedy was. I think that would be fine. And I think that's what he should do. And so I will be very disappointed if he nominates someone who's sort of like super arch conservative, because that would mean there's really no one left. I mean, I guess Roberts would be the only one, but Roberts is even more conservative leaning than Kennedy. There would be no one who is more of a moderate. And I think that would be really a shame, because if you look at America, the majority of Americans identify as independent, or not one party or the other. And so I think that would be doing a very big disservice to our country to have a completely polarized Supreme Court. So yeah, I guess I'm sort of bucking the party logic. Like, I don't necessarily think we should wait until the midterms and play this like political chess game of like who gets to block whose nomination and blah, blah, all of this. Like, I condemned it when it was Mitch McConnell, like super condemned it. So it would be hypocritical of me not to condemn Democrats for trying to do or wanting to do a similar thing. But I do think Trump should nominate a moderate. I think he should nominate someone who is more in the middle.
Well, I think that's it for us, guys. Tomorrow is Independence Day 2018. Yeah. We hope you guys have a great and wonderful time tomorrow night and have a good Tuesday. And we might see you tomorrow. I don't really know what our plan is, but
we'll discuss.
Yeah. So, but have a good day tomorrow. Bye, guys.
Bye.